I came to New Zealand in 1951. Some of my daughters said, "Why the heck did you come over here for?"
I was born in Howrah, and Dad was a farmer out at Ohangai. And of course, being on a farm, the farmer's boy, you get out and you do the, get out and help on the farm.
Grandpa's and grandmother's farm went up the slope of the mountain. They had a creek down through a paddock under the shade of Mount Taranaki.
Well, I was born in Dorset in England. I went to a school at the age of 11 where they had good woodworking facilities, and I got interested.
Probably there's never a time that I can't remember that I made things out of wood. Right from preschool, we lived in Mangatautri, which isn't too far from here, and I helped my father straighten nails when he built a shed one time. So that's my earliest memory of doing something to do with wood. But I just seemed to enjoy anything to do with woodwork right from that very early time.
Well, my interest in making things out of wood goes right back to primary school days. It was a small country school, and all the boys in our classes were keen with fret saws and 3/16 plywood, and we spent our happy times making little models of cars and trucks and things out of this plywood.
I was born in Belgium. Well, my father was, I suppose you could say, a joiner or a cabinet maker. So I've always been interested in wood.
I was born, and I say thankfully, 12 miles on the English side of the Scottish border.
I was 8, 9 before I got a pocket knife that worked and started whittling and making toys for my friends. Whittling and learning the names of the trees that I was whittling and working out which were the best woods to whittle. And I went on sort of right through to the end of the Second World War, making aeroplanes and things for my friends to play with. Because toys were very scarce in those days.
At that time, there was a population explosion in New Zealand after the Second World War. And so there were houses being built hand over fist, and there was no difficulty getting an apprenticeship. So I did an apprenticeship in carpentry and joinery, and then changed halfway through and did cabinet making and shop fitting. So that was my early time in doing woodwork, yeah.
Yeah, my first job, I got a job in a shop, but I used to love eating all the sultanas and things. I didn't last very long there.
We'd just come over from Belgium then, so I had about 8 months of schooling, if that, and was back to work then. And hello you, what do you call that? Foreign language, I couldn't speak a word of English. I got a job, and the boys, they were about 8 of us, and we all working there in pairs. And I was last. Mr. Morris, the foreman over there, he was talking about what to do, and he said to me, "Look, mister, go and give Jack a hand." Jack a hand? So I walked over to Jack, I shook his hand.
When I hopped on a boat in 1962, came out to New Zealand and spent 2 years on a farm, or 18 months on a farm actually, before I went herd testing. And then I decided herd testing wasn't quite the right job for a married man, so I went to Ruakura, and I spent the rest of my years at Ruakura.
I decided in 1963 that I would like to do woodwork teaching, and joined Polytech in 1990 and had around about must have been about 22 years with the Polytech, which I really enjoyed. Adult students, they're great to teach.
After I came to New Zealand to do research, I then ended my career teaching at the Waikato Polytech Agriculture, and Fred Irvine was there. And then I heard about Derek Kerwood, and those were the two pioneers that really got the thing going.
But it was not easy to get here. And some people who I spoke to and told them what I was going to do, what the heck do you want to do in New Zealand? It's only farming there. Anyway, how wrong they were, and how lucky I was to come to New Zealand.
Woodwork has been part of my life, and my wife obviously knew that I was keen on turning, because for my 40th birthday she gave me a lathe which she had bought from the farmers, a very basic piece of equipment, but I was thrilled, and I thought, well, I'll have to find out what I do with this thing.
When I was at work at Ruakura, I enjoyed my lunch hour by whittling away with some chains, and I used to take a different piece of wood every time I'd finished one. I'd bring a different piece of wood to work and whittle that and every time I did a different design. So I've used in total about 186 different woods with 186 different designs.
And it's partly the designs that get you so thrilled, you know?
When the grandchildren came, we went in the garage, in the workshop, and we messed about with wood. We painted Christmas trees. I must have made hundreds of Christmas trees for primary school kids.
I like to see the kids light up when they see the toys, and sometimes they'll come in, a little fellow will come in with a lady. I'll give them something, and boy, they think it's Christmas. They really love it. They grin, they laugh, they do whatever, and then they sort of creep around mum's legs, and you know, and I'm a bit that way. I'll just give things, you know. Okay, it's not a big item, but yeah, love it. They just love it.
I'm a keen, enthusiastic person about wood turning, and if anybody gets close to me, they'll know about it.
But the whole thing is, what wood turning has given me, you make something out of nothing. Now that's the exciting part.
The club started, and it was great. Get help, enthusiasm, and we started a newsletter. We called it Chips and Shavings. Now the chips was to keep the wood carvers happy, because they were the early innovators in getting people together to do carving. And there was enough young people in those days. The tradesmen in the club were young, so they could climb up and crawl under. And they did a masterful job in getting the whole place going.
And we met in the woodworkers' room, woodturners' room, or woodwork room rather, in the Melville School. And they sat on a stool if you were quick, and on a workbench if you weren't. And we learnt the basic wood turning from the various members who knew more than we all did.
Derek Kerwood was the teacher, and I went along initially just thinking it would be quite an advantage to have a little bit of carving knowledge to go with my other woodworking, but I was so keen on the carving that the carving took over.
And Fred Irvine had his classes going at Wintec, and I joined those classes, and I stayed working in those classes with Fred for about 10 years and thoroughly enjoyed that.
Joining the club, I've learned a heck of a lot, especially from Wolf Devlin. He was good to me, and Jim Pope also taught me a few things. I was teaching for at least 10 years, Jim Pope and I. We used to do it on a Wednesday night.
The most wonderful talk we ever had was by John Marshall at the club. John was an architect teacher at the Polytech, and he talked about the golden rectangle and the 1/3, 2/3 proportions. And that side of wood turning was fascinating. It's an amazing experience. Most of us who were at that meeting never forgot that.
Oh, my neighbour and I go out to craft fairs, and we have some interesting moments at times.
And at the craft fair, people say, "Oh, but you can't use that." "Why not? It's too nice." I said, "The next one that tells me that, I'm going to throw it on the floor and jump all over it."
Once I made a note which said "Made in Taiwan" and put it on his work. And when he came back, he didn't see it, and I thought, well, I can't leave that on there. So I sort of tried to get the notice away, and he saw me and he said, "What's that?" And I said, "Oh, I had Made in Taiwan on your work." So we have a lot of laughs when we go out.
If you spoke to all of our members, you'd find that if not all of them, have been asked by a friend or a member of the community to make a little something for them, whether it's for them to give away as a gift.
When that was it the earthquake in Christchurch? I think that's when it was. We made a whole lot of egg cups, and because it was over Easter, or it was around Easter, and we put Easter eggs in them, and we bundled them all up and sent them down to Christchurch to somebody down there. I'm not sure who it was, and for them to distribute out for the kids for something special for Easter, and we did that as a club.
The other thing that happened by chance was that a dear friend's daughter needed chemotherapy. So she lost her hair, poor girl, and I remembered old aunts and mothers had hat stands. They used to put the hats on because they always wore a hat. And I made a hat stand for her, and then she wanted another one. She showed the hat stand to the wig selling lady, and this took off. So I made a few, and then I said to the local club, took them along, "Hey lads and girls, we need some wig stands." And then I remember writing an article in the magazine Creative Wood about what we were doing in the club, because we ended up with 40 a month. And that has grown to be an amazing. Fred Irvine worked out that in the last 20 years, because we've been doing it for 20 years, we must have turned 2,000 wig stands, and it still goes on.
I've enjoyed the company of fellow woodworkers, and we go out, club members get together and go out to various events.
And honestly, it's been really great.
And of course, New Zealand, you were never short of wood.
New Zealand in particular, we've had a love affair with wood, and in our early days, all of the homes built in New Zealand would have been built from timber. And Timber is an integral part of New Zealand life. Our trees are incredible.
Hamilton's got the whole range of woods. You don't need go anywhere to find different woods. And we've got members who have milled wood over their lives, and they've got a full range of, you're never short of a bit of wood.
The Rimu is good because it's got good grain if you can get a good hard piece of Rimu. But if you can get a good bit of kauri from out of the swamp, that is also good. I've got quite a bit there now.
Walnut, oh, there's all gorgeous ones. Some are easier than the others. Now it gets down to if I can get a hunk of kauri from somewhere.
Even radiata pine, if you're desperate. But some of that can be made into beautiful grains. Some of the things Derek Kerwood made for the Kawerau pine radiata competition were unbelievable.
Tawa is very nice, good to turn, and it'll take stain, it'll take anything.
I know that you get very fussy about what type of timber you have. Some is good, some is not so good. But each one has got its merits.
Yeah, if it's got good grain, I'll use it.
Oh, it's what you can get. It's what you can get now.
Just wood. And, you know, you've got wood all over the place.
Very well put.
Most of my ideas come to me in the middle of the night, and I'll wake up and think about it.
But the minute you start drawing it then on a piece of wood, and then you get your ideas, you know, just like, yeah, and it just goes on from there.
Some things with carving, you need to do a lot more planning, and I absolutely have to make a model of it first before I can start to actually carve it. And I use plasticine as my medium.
Initially, when you start a carving, you don't know that it's going to be successful. But there's a certain point where you can see that it's coming to be what you want it to be, and then it's a thrill, and the rest of it, the finishing, is just such fun.
The shape will evolve, and more often than not you'll make it into a shape that you think is okay, but decide that it needs improving. So you do.
You have to think ahead. You can learn a certain amount, but you really have to do an awful lot of planning beforehand.
I did a drawing for that carving. I left it upstairs and I went down and did the carving and came back up. The drawing was entirely different from the carving in the end.
I tend to make things for small children or old people in rest homes. So here's an example. Using wet timber, just wet logs, turning Christmas trees. So at Christmas, people paint these, decorate them. It's a sort of occupational therapy in rest homes. And of course, kids in school love these. And when they make little Christmas trees, they keep them. And that's the staggering thing. They've got trees that they made, you know, when they were in primary school. So that's rather nice, I think.
This piece here was a challenge for me. It's a piece of walnut, and I did that 2006, what's that, 14 years ago. Fairly early on in my turning career, but it was fun to do. A few hours of work, but I'm pretty proud of that piece. People say, "What's it for?" And I say, "Peanuts," so that might be a good idea.
This is not so much laminating, it's veneer work. Except for the main carcass, that is MDF glued together, and a bit of mahogany there, but the rest is removed, is veneer. I had 50 divisions round here, 50 I'm supposed to have the same name there. I got halfway and I thought, something's wrong. My angle is changing. I counted it up again, I only had 48. So it would never have matched. So I had to strip it all off and start again.
This is a whittled vase, and it's got links and balls and cages in the round about the top half of the vase. It was a bit of a challenge, I must say, but an enjoyable challenge. When I go to make something, I think, well, if I start now and I finish whenever I finish, and if I've enjoyed myself in the meantime, that's all that matters.
When you do a design in wood, you don't want to leave sticky out bits that are going to break off. You want to keep something entire, you know. It's all in one piece, and it's got all the details there, but it makes the best use of the bit of wood as well. So that's what I look for in a design.
That's a bit of yew, which is beautiful for turning. Here's another spoiler one. And this jacaranda again. Just one of my very first swamp cowie ones.
One of my particular interests has been wooden puzzles, and this one of my specialties, I guess, is impossible dovetails. Now that one is impossible to do, but this one is totally impossible to do. Some of these are done on a slide basis, but I invented this one with 7 dovetails so that nothing was possible to be able to be slidden, and that's just one of the ones I'm rather pleased about.
I take care to what I make. I sand it, you know, properly, go from grade to grade to grade of sandpaper, and I take pride in what I do, especially on the turning.
Lord of the Rings, marvellous. I'm just about to do a whole series of it again. Beautiful wood to carve. And this, because I run out of wood for this, I had to put his hand in, and then with his sword and everything. I love that. Mind you, if I carved it again now, it'd be quite different. You know, this is all very ordered and correct, you know, but I'm not ordered and corrected any longer.
And the biggest compliment I've ever had was I showed somebody a bowl one day and they said, "Oh, is that a Derek Kerwood bowl?" I really was thrilled.
More than once I have picked up a piece of wood out of a person's firebox and taken it away and given it back to them as a nice little bowl or a platter or something, and they can't believe it, that was a piece of their firewood.
In fact, it got to the stage where when one of the family saw me coming with a bowl, they ran away.
If they want to do wood turning, I'd say go ahead and do it. The only thing is, I said to Diane, the more people are doing it, less chance I've got of selling the stuff. Because there's more people doing it and they're giving to their friends and giving to but no, go ahead and do it. It gets you out of the house, it makes your brain active because you've got to think what you're doing, but get tuition from somebody that can do it. Don't just go out and start like I did. It was hard yakka.
Come along to a club, that's where you can improve. One of the things with starting off anything is that you need to, if you can get the advice from somebody who's done turning or carving for years, they can pass on the information, and you can get a lot of help from them.
I taught art in 2 winters in Hamilton for secondary school kids, and it was really rather fun because they enjoyed themselves so much that after 3 sessions they started bringing their friends along, and the friends said to me, "Oh, Mr. Oliver, I can't draw for nuts, I'm hopeless, don't worry." The thing is, people put other people down and say you'll never be an artist. I said, look, just here's a bit of paper, here's a pencil, you just scribble for a bit and talk to your friends, I'll come back in 20 minutes and see how you've got on. And as soon as they started to achieve something, they became artists. And the more you do, the more you learn.
The involvement of being with friends or people to make friends would be the special part of it. I've made a lot of friends through the club.
I went to a friend's 80th birthday party, and there was another chap there that I knew, and he said that he was about to retire. And so I just said, "Oh, good, what are you going to do?" And I said, "Have you got a hobby?" And he said, "No, I haven't." So I told him, wood turning. He came round, had a look, and he said, "I'm interested, I'll come to the club meetings," but he said, "I'm not going to buy a lathe." Well, now that chap has probably got a very fully set up workshop, lathe and all, and he does beautiful work, and he loves it.
I certainly keep busy, and never a dull moment really, because I can go out in the garden when it's fine, and I can stay in the workshop whether it's fine or it's wet, and so I can say I never ever get bored and never have anything that I can do.
Probably the nearest thing to heaven for me is to be in my workshop and the sun is shining and the radio is going and I'm working on a project of some sort. And it doesn't matter what the project is, it's the most recent one that's the most enjoyable. But to be in my workshop, sun shining, the radio going, and that's just absolutely wonderful.